most anticipated games in 2026. Now, there are plenty of wherever you come from, there's plenty of games you're going to be looking forward to. All right. If you're a Tennessee fan, you're probably looking forward to all the SEC games. If you're a USC fan that we're going to talk about later, you're looking forward to all the games you're going to be playing, right? Well, these are for the college football public, and I picked 5 because honestly, I thought it was going to be a lot harder. I really did. I thought this was going to be a difficult list to kind of shrinking. I thought this was going to be a little tough to only make so many teams or so many games worth, and I only had so much of a graphic to make. But it really wasn't that much. When you look at the home run hitters, like these are the ones that all odds are going to be locked in on. Now, I'm as big as a college football fan as the next guy, so I know there's plenty of other games that are, when we get there, could be as big as these, or when, it's week 4 and all of a sudden we start looking at week 8 and, Texas is playing LSU and we're like, oh, wow, that's going to be a huge one. I get those. But in terms of where we are right now in mid-March, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody can tell, the sun's still out. That's a big deal, right? That is a huge deal. The sun's still out. So with all of that, these are the 5 biggest games, most anticipated games I've got in 2026 so far. Here's the list. Here's a good cut for myself when I edit the video for the YouTube. Most anticipated games in 2026. I'll start with the first game I've got. Now, week 1, just to preface this, I looked at week 1, and we're going to talk about LSU's schedule here later in the show, but LSU Clemson was one that maybe had some juice to it, but that's not something I think, maybe other than the fact that LSU is playing its first game under Lane Kiffin, the Dabo Swinney, everybody loves to watch him fail or watch him do silly stuff metric. I just don't think it's that big of a home run hitter compared to these other ones. I also think when you look at the rest of the week 1 schedule, it's not too deep. There's like a Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Ole Miss, Louisville, Auburn, Baylor. Those are a couple of matchups we've got going on. But other than that, there's not a lot of home run hitters going on in week 1 in college football landscape. Now, week 2 is where we have our first one, though, and that is Ohio State at Texas in week 2. Now, if I've talked about this game multiple times already, but it's such a heavy hitter, so you had to know this one. You had to know this one was coming. Ohio State is going to Texas in week 2. It's going to be a night game. It's going to be on ABC or ESPN, whichever one you want to call it. This is obviously, SEC, Big Ten juggernauts going at it. Whoever wins this game is going to be seen as a force to be reckoned with. Whoever loses this game is going to have, only one loss left to bear based on the system we have right now. Remember, Texas lost last year. Then they slipped it twice more. Everybody thought they had a chance, or at least an argument to get in. And, because they lost in week 1, they played Ohio State. They didn't get in. So now this is the same thing. Texas, Ohio State, win this game. Texas, you have got to win this game for the reputation of the SEC. For Ohio State, it's, got to be able to look themselves in the mirror and be humbled a little bit if you're Texas, because you cannot lose this game at home at night. Nope, can't happen. Cannot happen. For Ohio State, though, that would be huge if you could go in there and win that game. Now, I don't think a lot of people would give a lot of slack to Ohio State for losing this game. It's going to be a tough game to win. At least I think so. Who knows? Ohio State or Texas go out there and just be awful, and we could be in a whole nother situation where Arch Manning just really isn't that good. But I'm going to bank on it. That's probably not going to be the case, so it's going to be a tough game at Texas in week 2. Week 3, no intro needed. LSU is going to Ole Miss. The Lane Kiffin Bowl is going to be absolutely extraordinary. I don't really know how else to say this, but with everything that happened this past season and the offseason, right? This whole let's call it, we're in March now, since early November, mid-October, so 5-6 months, it has just been absolute chaos for the Ole Miss. And really, not even much of the LSU side. They kind of just sitting there laughing, watching it happen. But the Ole Miss coaching stuff has just been nuts. Everyone knows what happened, right? If you don't, you lived under a rock. You're probably not watching a show. Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss before the playoffs after getting them to their best season ever. Went to LSU, yada yada yada, and took a bunch of their players. Now their quarterback and their running back though. But anyway, Lane Kiffin's going back to the place that he resurrected his career at. so early in the season too. Ole Miss beat LSU last year, kind of what got the wheels starting on firing Brian Kelly last year, and LSU's got to win that game. Like I say, Texas and Ohio State. Texas needs to really win that game, and I don't think a lot of people would be upset at Ohio State for not winning that game. Same thing I think applies here for LSU going to Ole Miss in this game. Like LSU has to win this game. This has to be a win for Lane Kiffin. Because if you lose to the team that you left, and oh boy, it's not the end of the season. But again, there's only so many losses you can have. And if that's going to be one of them to Ole Miss, I just don't think that's a good situation for you to be in, Lane Kiffin. You've got to beat Ole Miss in week 3. And then week 4 and week 5 happen. Again, there's probably some really good games. But I'm telling you, again, when we get to September, I will probably go, circle this one in week 4. Circle this one in week 5. But for right now, in mid-March, week 6 is the next big kahuna game, and that is Georgia at Alabama. And you just know, because every time, other than the last time, these two teams play, it's always a classic. Okay, it's just, obviously, I don't really call it much of a rivalry. It's just, two teams that usually play a lot of big games. So, if you want to call it a rivalry, you can. But if we're calling it a rivalry, Georgia has the last win in the rivalry. But either way, Alabama's won the last 2 games in the regular season. So this is a 3rd straight regular season game between these two teams. This one's going back to Tuscaloosa. And, I mean, if Georgia won the SEC championship game against Bama, right, they kind of got the little monkey off their back. But to really, and as, Georgia fan here, to really, set in stone that we've got to get it going, that we've established something here, got to win this game, right? Like, you can't be lollygagging around anymore. You got to go to Alabama, especially now the way people are talking about Alabama this season. It's like Alabama's going to go 8-4 the way some people are talking. I mean, so Georgia's got to be one of those 4 losses, you would think. And I've said on this show, I think Georgia's going to be very good this season. So I think that game right there, just because the logos and you look at the first 2 we matched up with, right? You just expect Ohio State, Texas, the rematch, the logos, LSU, Ole Miss, the story of Lane Kiffin, Georgia, Alabama, the history of the 2 teams, and usually every game is insane. So that's where I'm at with that. Week 7, it has a banger, and it's Ohio State at Indiana. This is obviously a rematch Big Ten championship game, and this is, if we've talked about Indiana and Ohio State's schedule on the show in the last couple of weeks, Indiana, this is their first real game they're going to play. Obviously, Ohio State's playing Texas. I'm pretty sure Ohio State goes to Iowa before this game too. This is the first big game Indiana's going to play. They're going to be playing, the High School of the Blind all 6 weeks before this, pretty much. So this is going to be their first real football game Indiana's going to play, and it's going to be mid-season while Ohio State's kind of took some bumps and bruises. And I'm just going to let you know right now, Indiana's going to be 6-0 when they play this game, and Ohio State could be 5-1. So depending on when their buys are, but I'm just telling you, Indiana will be undefeated, and this will be where they can cement. Pretty much they're going to the playoffs again in this game. And now if Ohio State gives them some work, who knows? I don't have that feeling that's going to happen. But where, would you have believed me if I told you 3 years ago that Ohio State and Indiana week 7 was just going to be an absolute banger in 2026? It was going to be something you were looking forward to in March. I don't know if you would. Believe me. Week 10 is the next one, and it's the last one I've got circled on here for now. Miami is going to Notre Dame. This is another one kind of in that same LSU Ole Miss category, just because it's the story of everything that happened last year, right? Miami gets into the playoffs over Notre Dame after Notre Dame had been in the playoffs the whole entire time. And then at the very end, they put Miami in. Then Miami goes on and plays for the national championship, while Notre Dame doesn't even play in a bowl game. That game's going to be freaking epic, all right? And this is awesome that it's, last year was in week 1 on a Sunday, which is always cool. But the fact that this is going to be week 10, these teams are going to be pretty established at this point, right? We're going to know who these teams are, and this is going to have insane playoff implications, mainly because both these 2 teams have really easy schedules, and both teams could be undefeated at this point of the season. When they get to this game, if they're both not undefeated, or there should be at most 1 loss between the 2 teams when they get to this game. One team should be undefeated. I mean, this should be a top 10 game. Circle it right now. Week 10, Miami Notre Dame should be a top 10 game. If it's not, something has gone terribly wrong for one of those two teams, and that is something we will laugh at around here. But Miami Notre Dame Week 10 right now, as we're thinking about it, as I'm thinking about it, it's got to be one of the best games that I'm looking forward to. And that, I mean, it's in November, so we got a long time till then, right?